Welcome to Digital to Foot Traffic. I am Kevin Shi.
And I am Scott Jensen. We are digital marketers with massive experience in running brick and mortar stores.
Join us each episode as we explore the latest digital marketing trends and uncover strategies from the best in the industry.
How are you guys doing?
I'm okay. I mean, I'm reaching out to Doug. I know Doug from a few. Actually, I think I met Doug on Twitter. I met a lot of people on Twitter like 7 years ago and it was a hit. Back then, my wife was pregnant, so she didn't let me out. So I just got drunk and talked to random people in Hong Kong.
You remember that Twitter?
That's how I met you. Yeah,
really?
Yeah. I met a lot of marketers and PR guys but Doug, can you give some intro of yourself? Yeah.
But I remember the first time that I met you. There's kind of a saying in Hong Kong that if you don't meet somebody by the third time, you really didn't want to meet them at all. And I think I bailed on you the first two times. I started to stutter the second time, and you cut me off in mid-sentence, and you said, this would be the third time. You would have bailed on me. And I said, okay, I'll be there. I remember that.
It was pretty far, I mean, my office was like, 45 minutes. Hong Kong terms is pretty far.
No excuse. It was worth the trip. Well, you had to come down and get me. Remember?
Oh, really?
I got hell lost.
Wow.
Seriously.
Oh,
I
yeah.
turned around.
It was like an hour and a half.
Yeah. I was there, but I was just wondering.
That was like 10 years ago. When was that? That was 11? Like 2011?
Yeah, you said 7 years. I think it's more than 7 years. I think it's a long time ago. Yeah.
Time
flies.
You still look the same. But Doug is from U.S. Can you give some info?
You want to know a little bit about my history, how I got here?
How you got here, where you grew up?
Yeah. All right. This is a story I kind of like to tell because I'm in digital marketing, social media marketing more precisely. Mm-hmm. And I never really had a mission or a goal in life. I think I've been always kind of a motivated individual. I have a hard time saying no to anything. Somebody says, here's something for you to do. I kind of like, okay.
The Jim Carrey movie. Yes, man.
I'm along for the ride, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I went away to school, and as soon as I had a chance to get out of school, I didn't want to start a formal job. Just scared the crap out of me. So I went down to Reno, Nevada, and I dealt cards and dice for 10 years.
Trap shooter.
Yeah, and then when I was doing that, I went to the University of Nevada, Reno, and I was studying in the PhD program that they had there in behavioral psychology. So I got kind of really invested.
So you're a PhD?
I do not. I never finished my PhD. I came close 3 times.
You started. It's considered as a PhD.
Right? Okay, well, there we go. I got a PhD in life, right?
Yeah.
So that's when I started getting kind of really involved in just understanding people and stuff like that, and it's all really cool. But I ended up going a different route because the whole behavioral PhD program wasn't all that interesting, so I went across to San Jose State, and I ended up getting my master's in experimental psychology, which is just basically...
What kind of job can you get after that?
Well, it's like it's like project management for the social sciences.
Okay.
But with being able to have like a really deep knowledge of statistics.
Oh,
so
wow.
It's kind of like really cool. So it's like project management.
Fun.
Yeah, it really is. So my first job was doing data analysis and database design.
And this
for
is in the 90s?
Yeah, mid-80s.
Mid-80s?
Mid-80s, yeah, mid-80s. And mid to late 80s. And then from there, I ended up, for some reason, after far too many margaritas with a friend, I ended up somehow accepting a job in Saudi Arabia.
Wow.
And I flew over there, and I started working for Lucent Technologies over there, and it was the largest telecommunication project in the world at the time, called TEP6.
Okay.
And I was their operations manager.
Wow.
So I was doing all their database management.
So you weren't actively looking for a job?
Oh, no, I just fell from one job to the next, Okay. And, fell from one job to the other. And at that particular time, I started to get to understand more about data systems and enterprise-level software. How basically back in those days, we didn't have big data. So what they had is you had big data solutions and you had all these data warehouses and stuff like that. And so I was responsible for managing that. And so IBM picked me up and they took me over to the UAE. And I started a trip, and so I don't know, 10, 15, 20 years later or something like that, I've been traveling. I've lived and worked in 23 different countries. And over all that time, the only permanent address I had was an email address, okay?
Hotmail?
It was
Netscape.
no, it was usually an Outlook email that was
Okay.
provided to me by but same difference, right?
Okay.
So and that was kind of important because always traveling all the time, I never saw the people that I worked with, and I became really comfortable with having conversations with people I'd never met.
So
And working with people I never knew.
You're like an earlier form of a digital nomad.
Yes, and that was kind of it. And how I found myself in Hong Kong is they offered me a job. IBM offered me a job in Hong Kong, working with Cathay Pacific at the time. And at the time, I didn't know that I was the 6th project manager that they had hired on and fired from that project. And so I came over here, fell in love with Hong Kong.
Okay.
3 months later,
This was in the early 90s.
Yeah, this was early 90s.
So you came back to Hong Kong before me. I came back.
No, this was 2000.
Oh, you came after.
Yeah, this is 2000.
Not too many people come to Hong Kong after before me. Yeah, I'm a dinosaur, man.
Because I left the states in the late 80s, and then I ended up in Hong Kong in 2001.
So you spent about 10 years in the Middle East.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, South America, Europe.
Oh, that's the life.
23 different countries.
That's the life, man. You speak Spanish?
No.
Scott speaks Spanish.
Are you going to speak some Spanish for us, Scott?
I don't know that pertains to the audience we have right here. Let's keep with that.
We have to add more personality.
Yeah.
Our subscribership is not very high.
We just have to show that we're diverse and open
we have to talk
to other cultures.
I think I do have our next guest lined up speak Spanish as well, so maybe we'll do it in Spanish.
Hola. ¿Cómo
estás?
So talk about that and how did you get into marketing, specifically digital marketing,
Okay.
and social.
Okay, well, yeah, and that was the segue. So right around 2005, 2004, 2005, I opened up my own shop, and I started helping brands manage their companies online. And this
was in early 2000s.
2005, yeah.
This is before this is like there is
this
no.
This is early.
Yeah.
This was forums.
This is when Yahoo search was free and there's no Google.
Yes, and this was forums were starting to take place, right?
Yeah.
Forums.
Yeah.
And they were a phenomenon here. And so that was one of the first things that we
China.com, HongKong.com.
We were managing all across the world. We were managing as many as 400 different forums for our clients at that particular time. So This was pre-Facebook, pre-Twitter,
brand reputation
online, and it was a real comfortable fit for me because of the fact that here I was digitally talking to people, communicating to them, never seeing them, never doing anything. So basically the last 15 of my years of my life was just now all of a sudden becoming like, okay, this is what it's all about. I understand data, I understand people, I understand technology, and I understand working and communicating with people that I probably will never ever see. It just kind of all came together.
Your calling.
Yeah, it really did. So when we started to have Twitter and Facebook, and it really started to become powerful from forums, which was mostly one-way communication, to this, the social media that we know today, where you have these mass communications with people. It just all came together, and it came very, very comfortable for me. It really was. I think I had, up until that point, I didn't know what my special purpose was. Okay, and then all of a sudden there it was. Boom.
But a few insights of Doug. I know Doug for a while now, mainly from Twitter, but he's quite famous for social media, particularly Facebook. So I'm weak in that area, but I just talked to Doug earlier over coffee, and he gave me a lot of insights about Facebook and how you can use it as a marketer, as a retailer, and there's a lot of insights and it's catching on, and so I think there's a lot of things we can talk about. Anything you want to ask, Scott?
Yeah, Doug. So appreciate you taking the time to spend with us today. It's always good to talk to somebody else who's kind of come up through the industry and done it a little bit differently, and grateful for that. I have a ton of questions for you as we come along here, but let's start with what Kevin kind of parlayed into, which is Facebook and where. Let's start with maybe a broad question: is where are you seeing? I guess what's the intrigue for you, and where do you see the success right now? And speaking specifically to what this podcast is about, which is really driving kind of from a digital environment to a physical location. Where are some of the opportunities you're seeing there, or what's exciting you about that?
This is my passion. It really is. And I know that's an overused buzzword, but it really is. I mean, this is what gets me out of bed every day. And really, I'm not very enthusiastic about the near future. I really am. I mean, it's hard for me to get very excited about it. From a very pragmatic standpoint, though, I think that it has great opportunity for small to medium businesses. And I do believe that brick and mortar stores especially have an opportunity to be able to leverage a lot of the opportunities of social media, especially Facebook, but also Instagram, Sina Weibo, WeChat, Line, Viber, WhatsApp is up and coming, and various other things. We never like to stick exclusively to one application because of the fact that we believe that being able to publish a suite of content across multiple different applications allow you to better target different customer segments and catch people at different times of day, manage them along the customer journey, and most importantly, I always believe what's more important than a customer with money in hand is the customer data. So anytime you have an opportunity to be able to capture that, it's important. And social media right now, from a business standpoint, is probably one of the greatest sources of customer data.
More than Google?
More than Google. We were talking about this earlier. I would probably say that right now, Facebook is starting to rival Google Analytics with the ability to provide level of detail on audience and customer data going in. And as they're starting to advance into other channels in which to be able to capture and engage, which Google does not, such as Facebook Messenger, they're even expanding their reach, because now is what they're doing is they're providing different ways in which to communicate and interact and engage with people, which Google, again, is not. And with their advancing in things like offline events tracking, their Facebook Pixel, which they're now expanding on, and various other things, they're putting all the tokens and everything else that Google now has, they're giving them a run for their money. And so when you think then about the power of it, Google right now as a search engine is still probably the number one used application in the world. And because we use it with semantic search, it's very good about understanding what people really want to do, because we type things in exactly like we want to see them now. I don't know if that's because we're lazy or whatever, but we just expect Google to read our minds halfway and give us what we want, okay? And, Facebook doesn't work like that. Facebook goes through and it has to use complex algorithms in order to do correlations, in order to look at all the different clicks and likes that we've done, compare it against all the different people that are similar to us, and then it builds up a profile about us. So it's hard to argue which one is probably doing the better job. But I think for businesses that are serious about using data and really understanding their customers in order to be able to drive sales, the two complement each other well. And to discount Facebook right now would probably be, not a good thing.
Scott, actually, I'm more interested to hear from what Scott says, because Scott, I think he's a big advocate of that, especially from companies he used to work with. And what amazes me is not only just customer segmentation, but just the whole profile, what do you call it, the yield curve. So every customer base has a different yield, a different price point, a different offer that maximize conversion, different lifetime value. Can you elaborate some examples that you had with with the travel companies that you did, and what they do is pretty insane, how much depth segmentation they have?
Yeah. I would say, though, to kind of piggyback on what Doug's talking about here, is that I don't think of this as being linear, and in a linear process. And what I mean by that is that you don't start at the beginning and you go to the end, but really it feeds itself. And so one of the big things that we've been doing a lot of recently is using some of the search campaigns and some of the, I would say, more of the marketing tactics, where we're going through and we're identifying, for example, okay, what's the product? What's the target? Who is the product aimed at? What is the voice that we're speaking in? And then what's either the product opportunity or the concern that we're addressing? And then you start with that, and you come up with 3 or 4 of those things, and they validate. And the way you kind of validate that's actually what you want to focus on is it warrants a white paper, and a white paper would be something big, a bigger piece of content that you would kind of base this off of. And from there, you go out and you build a PR strategy, and you look at your PR placements, and you look at your blogs, and there's probably 2 to 3 blog posts per white paper. And then you have landing pages, and you create LinkedIn ads, and you create Facebook ads, and you create paid search ads. And it's cyclical. And what I mean by that is that it feeds back, and it's a loop. And so once you start to get some traction with, say, your Facebook ads that you've gone out for this particular content piece, then that also then gives you some idea of, hey, who should we be targeting this towards, and who should our remarketing audiences be, and what are the audiences that we're creating in specific going towards this. And this is me getting very intense about this again, in a similar way when you start thinking about this. But it is very cyclical on how it builds on itself, and you get more and more refined as you go along. And so as you do that, you start to understand, hey, what's my product? And we can use an example of travel here really well, is that we would find, hey, we're going to start promoting, use the example I just built on the one before, Bali as a destination. And we would have kind of all these great, we would look for, say, a week and a half where we'd be promoting Bali as a destination to customers in the States versus customers in Europe. And we would kind of start off by just doing the general, hey, we're going to put all the photos of Bali in, and we're going to post anywhere from, 2 to 6 times a day about Bali. And then it's going to be to everybody. And then we're going to see which photos maybe appeal more towards the 18 to 24-year-olds, and which ones appeal more to the 65 to 75-year-olds. And then we're going to start to segment that off, and we're going to start to show more of the resorts that have the kind of the full resort, surprisingly, with the pool that is also on the beach, to those kind of 18 to 24-year-olds. And then when you're talking about more of the adventure, getting out into the culture, go out and to visit some of the cities and out into the countryside, would appeal more to the 65 to 75-year-olds. And then we would build additional content and target it towards those two different groups of people. And then we would do it again, and we would say, hey, can we segment the 65 to 75-year-olds more and the 18 to 25-year-olds differently, and continue to build on it. So it's really kind of building on itself once you kind of put it out there. But it's a matter of getting your tracking in place, understanding that that segmentation is out there and possible, and then watching it as it goes through, and then iterating on top of it as you go.
I have 2 questions for you for that, Scott. One is that how Priceline or Expedia became to have 80,000 different customer segment profile because of these A/B testing and splits? That's number one. And number 2 is, I remember you use a lot of third-party data, like from other sites and all that. That goes well. I understand you do it with remarketing and landing pages on Google and just a website. But how do you integrate that? And how, like as a guy with like me, for example, with 30, 40 stores, how can I integrate that part with Facebook? Is there like a central piece of ERP software or some software that I do? Because that sounds pretty manual to me for now.
So, Doug, I'm curious on your thoughts on this. There are some ways, that you can bring that system in-house where you build your own data warehouse. And Doug mentioned that he started his life before those existed now. And I would say that those are coming down to, those systems are becoming more affordable to kind of mid and small size companies, although they're not quite there yet in most cases, although there are some cases that are there. But the tools themselves, Google and Facebook, are allowing, as Doug mentioned, the ability to tag things and tag them with both Google and Facebook tags, and then be able to compare your segments within the tools themselves. There is a little bit of a manual play there, but you can start to export that stuff out and look at customers if you create your own customer ID to do that. Fair, and it doesn't require you to have a data science background to get there.
Doug?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Everything you said was spot on. With regard to Facebook, Facebook is starting to get a little bit more sophisticated in how they allow you to do your customer segmentation, and they're building the concept of audiences.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just like Google.
Yeah, just like Google.
Yep.
But what they've started to do, which most people don't realize, is when you start digging into the audiences used to be fairly limited to just basically the demographic profiling that you could put in place with regard to the Facebook ad platform. So you could create something and then you could save it as an audience. And then they started allowing you to upload email addresses, and if it could match a certain amount of email addresses from your contact list, then it would create an audience based on that. Now they've started to expand your ability to be able to create audiences based on many, many different types of platforms and permutations, and they allow you now to start accessing any audience that you have under your control. So if you're an agency and you're managing many different accounts without violating any privacy laws, because you never drive down to the level of the telephone number, the personal data, you don't do that. we're allowed to start tapping across different ones and starting to custom build audiences based on profiles that we've got from different clients in order to do hybrid audiences specifically for unique
But
clients.
is that a manual event? Like, do you export from Google Analytics and then you input in Facebook?
No, it's not so much. The audience platform, if you go into Facebook, and most people don't even know where to find it. And since we're talking about small to medium enterprises with people's stores, they probably don't have this in-house expertise and knowledge. But it's a separate platform and a separate function than the traditional ads platform. So they need to go to a different place in Facebook in order to be able to action and manage these things. And it's becoming really quite complex. And one of the things that we're starting to see right now is that Facebook is starting to intuitively start to develop audiences based on your past performance on things you tried.
Lookalike.
Not quite lookalikes. Facebook is starting to remember different things that you have tried, which is good because everybody should
as
an audience.
As an audience.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so it's saving that for you in the background without you even really knowing it, which means that you can go back and revisit these things and start creating hybrids. Now, the lookalike audience, I absolutely do agree with those. I think those are helpful. And one of the things that we particularly just kind of throwing a little piece of knowledge out there for people who want to give it a go. Lookalike, we're finding that a lookalike audience with an additional 3% right now is usually pretty much a sweet spot for small to medium businesses to reach out to new people. Anything bigger than that gets a little bit too wide. Anything smaller than that is pretty much just talking to the same people.
Okay. Scott, any questions from you?
No, that as far as that topic is concerned, I think it's great. And Doug, I think it's interesting. I guess then my follow-up question would be, give us, in your opinion, the landscape 12 months from now. How are things different than they are now?
I have been advocating inbound marketing for many, many, many years now.
Yep.
And so,
can you elaborate on that? How you're using LinkedIn?
Okay.
And B2B?
Yeah.
That's very interesting.
Okay. Well, inbound marketing is just being, incredibly sensitive, much like Scott, what you were talking about and what I have mentioned too, about being, very, very specific and deliberate about the content that you put out and making sure that it is going to be impactful for specific customer segmentations and having them drive it back and then having that be an iterative process so you can continue to refine how you reach out to that customer segmentation in ways in which are going to be increasingly, for lack of a better word, profitable. Okay. All right. That kind of thing. So, that's kind of the inbound marketing. And in the B2B world, you can change the name to that. It's not exactly the same thing, but it's pretty close. And it's lead generation. Mm-hmm. And most B2B marketing is about lead generation in order to be able to make that initial connection in order to start to develop a relationship. Okay. Mm-hmm. And then from there, in most B2B worlds, depending on the size of the company and the amount of merchandise that they're selling, often becomes a kind of a person-to-person, a peer-to-peer relationship.
So social media can help a lot.
Yeah, it can help a lot in starting to identify that. And so a lot of the practices that we learned from B2C marketing over the last 5 to 6 years in social, we're now finding are really helping us advance the curve on lead generation with regard to our B2B clients right now.
Can you give us some examples that you can share?
Well, one of the things that we're doing is we're going through with a number of different companies. Manulife, Sun Life are two of them here in Hong Kong right now. And we're starting to educate their brokerage staff, which is their sales team, on how to be able to better use
social media.
Yeah, social media, and specifically the social media that the company does.
Okay.
And leveraging that for their own benefit and taking advantage of working with their digital marketing team. It used to be they thought the digital marketing team was just these silly people that went out there and got to do fun stuff while they sat in the back office and did all the really hard work, which was cold call and sell stuff.
Is that the general feeling also in the U.S.?
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, this is a fascinating conversation because I'm right in the middle of a project where we're doing exactly this, where it's a B2B product, and it was specifically thought of because of the success that we've had in B2C over the last couple of years, and it's all kind of what we jokingly. It's not really a joke, I guess, but when you're when you're starting a battle, that it has been a kind of a traditional thing for generations now, where you kind of bombard the battlefront with long-range projectiles for some time to kind of soften up the enemy for a little bit, right? And that's kind of what you were seeing for a little while with some of the social stuff, where you would get your name out there and to a prospect. Now we're getting into what we call kind of where you're doing account-based marketing, or ABM or ABS, account-based sales, where you're really going in, identifying who the prospect is in a company based on your product or prospects, and then you're going out and tailoring messages specifically to them, and you're getting that in front of them before you call up, and it's considered a vital part of that B2C, or excuse me, that B2B sales process. You're right on. I don't mean to interrupt you. Keep going.
No, I think I was pretty much done, and I think you put a nice cherry on the top of that one.
So wait, let me see if I get this. You put something out on social media, prospect calls you up because they're interested at it. You focus on them, so you do maybe remarketing, and you schedule a meeting, because traditional brokerage and all that. But this is the kicker: from Facebook and all that, you get all the data from them. So you talk in their language when you meet them, their preference, their interests. So they're like, wow, this guy's, is just like me. And that boosts up your conversion rate, right? So it's not that they have a hocus pocus, they know all you because it's because of Facebook. Is that is that the new technique of B2B now?
None of it is hocus pocus. It's all about calculating how you craft the content.
But the data, meeting them prior to the meeting really, really helps.
Really does help.
Yeah, if they're conservative, But
most of that data that you're going to get is who is responding to particular content.
Yeah.
And then doing old-fashioned research, going out and checking out their LinkedIn and their Facebook profiles. I guess that seems old-fashioned these days, but it's really only been in the last couple of years. So,
okay.
And then also, finding out from them. We like to try and get some interim measures in basically the lead generation. And we like to see if we can't get people to do things like contact you, drop a note, download a white paper, subscribe to a newsletter, request information. You get some interim steps so that you have an opportunity to be able to capture some more data from them
before you make the appearance,
which is like contact data.
Yeah.
Which is something that you can't pull out of Facebook. Facebook isn't going to give you their email address, whereas if you can get them to do some interim step, then you have possibly email address and other things and stuff like that. So that's helpful. And if you have the email address, then you can move it across to different applications as well.
So I guess B2B and B2C is depends on the price of the product. If you have a retail shop, but if I sell expensive stuff, and maybe if I only sell 30 or 40 of these units, like a high-end stereo, I guess that's still can be considered as B2B. So social media works.
In this day and age, I see the two merging much more closely together. There's some subtleties in the way that you communicate to people. B2B is business networking. You have different conversations and you do different words when you're having a business meeting than you do when you're chatting with a friend and you're trying to get them to buy a can of Coke or something like that. It's a different tone, which Scott mentioned earlier. But it's to me, the process is starting to look more and more the same. Very, very similar.
Okay, Scott, you got any questions?
No, I think we've talked about kind of what we've seen. We went through kind of Doug's experience in the past, what's happening now, and then how things are going in the future. I agree. I think it's fascinating. I have for a long time felt like kind of the B2C world has been 4 to 5 years ahead of the B2B world, but that's starting to come together for the reasons you talked about, where people's lives are kind of mixed, and you're using LinkedIn and Facebook, and you see B2B ads on Instagram and all over the place. So it's all kind of merging into one, and you can see those profiles and build those out. It makes sense.
Okay. Any final low-hanging fruits or anything that you guys give my audience, like a small business owner? Well, I wouldn't say small, but retail brick-and-mortar stores.
Hire a good agency, or if you want to do it in-house, don't forget that data. Don't press the boost button on your post. Okay,
until the data is.
Use the ad manager in the back. The ad manager is easy to use. You should not be afraid of it, and you should promote as many posts as you can and start looking at the data and get comfortable with it. Take 15 minutes a day out of your morning while you're having your cup of coffee and just set up your ads and look at the data and figure out what your customers are really like. I think you start exploring with the audiences and various other things, I think most people are going to be really quite surprised at what they see. Not shocked, but surprised. And that surprise is going to lead to a lot better way of managing their businesses. Even if they're not sure how to advance it in social media, just having that knowledge about your customers, you're not going to get it any other way. You really aren't. Okay?
What you think your customers like and what the data tells you usually is not 100% match. Usually you find some surprises.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I listen to what everything people say, because it's important to listen to people, but then I watch what they do.
Yeah.
Because that usually is the truth, and that's the data.
Yeah.
So,
Scott, anything to wrap it up?
Yeah, this has been an ongoing theme that people say they like red buttons and they click on blue ones all the time.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, if I don't any of our audiences wants to reach you, how can they reach you? Do you I guess you serve customers all over the world?
I do. We serve customers all over the world. We have local, regional, and global strategies going on right now. We do everything from activation to consulting to corporate and in-house training. So you can reach me on LinkedIn. I'm White Douglas, just my name backwards. Okay. And you can find me on Facebook. And if you want to send me an email, I'm Douglas@prda.asia.
Cool.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks a lot. So I guess we wrap it up, Scott.
Yeah, appreciate it. Always good to talk to you, Kevin and Douglas. Thanks for joining us.
All right. Thanks a lot, Scott.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Great to talk to you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Digital to Foot Traffic. Join our mailing list at digitaltofoottraffic.com for more of our digital insights and strategies.
Leave us a review on iTunes or your favorite Android apps and subscribe so we'll show you the second we launch a new episode.